they could put me onto. I'm absolutely used to doing that. Yeah, my local group is actually scattered all over the United States right now.
Yeah, I need to get onto that list. I'll use that silver paper.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna pass out.
No, I feel better when I told you. Oh, that's a problem. I feel like hot garbage.
We might make these.
We might, but it's terrifying. I don't know where to Oh, okay.
Hey, Gwen's,
When do we need?
we're gonna need these.
Yes, and I don't know which one it is.
The answer is yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's all that matters. Sorry.
Here you go. Then there's kiosk here.
We can share, so yeah, we can just get a new. Well, I don't think that it's chicken bread. It's with people, which is they can actually get me up, for example, like give me rides.
Will we have music to sing to? With this one, yes, the second one.
Well,
What's the first line? What's the first line?
But also it helps me out, it's like, yeah, that I heard.
You know, I got it.
Yeah.
Mine
It is in fact number 128. Okay, that's it's traditional. Yeah, because I saw it in previous. Well, I know it's not.
Which one can
But the hooks bothered my ears too much because they were heavy. And so I was smaller, very targeted. But I do have ears. Yes.
so nice. I mean, look like you got it. I go with it.
Oh, there wasn't enough.
It's just.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Thoreau Woods Unitarian Universalist Church. You probably can hear me. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Thoreau Woods Unitarian Universalist Church. We're glad to have you here, whether you're new or a visitor or a long-term member. Announcements. We have the garage sale coming up on the 27th and 28th, that's the last Friday and Saturday, so please remember to bring your items in so that we can get them all priced. If you need to bring in a load of stuff that's not on sale, just give me a call. And I'll come and unlock the building for you and help you carry stuff in. I have a load of stuff, big load of stuff at my house, as is. So I'll be bringing in furniture and some other goodies. I'll put that one in the car. But please do donate, we do need more things to restock from last garage sale. And we did well with that, so we'd like to continue that fundraising. Any other announcements? Nothing else?
Isn't Paul speaking next week?
Paul will be speaking next week on Historic Jesus, and so we look forward to that. And we will be seeking more speakers for next month, so if anyone has a topic that they would like to speak on, please let me know. So, or if you know someone who would be a good speaker for us, please let me know. We are recording, so if you have concerns about what you would like to say during Joys and Concerns, you may speak them quietly or not use the microphone, or perhaps just keep silent as you light your candle if you don't wish to share with the public. Due to COVID, we are asking that if you are sick, please stay home. The flu is going around as well, so if you do need to wear a mask, that's fine. We do recommend when you start feeling any kind of symptoms. And I will be bringing more and have stocked at the front desk next weekend. Any other announcements? Ann, did you have something?
Well, I was gonna say that the Redhomes exhibit for Molly Campbell is gonna be up for a couple of months, I think, maybe till the end of the year. And she's a local artist, and it's a very nice retrospective of her work. So if you're interested in going to the, you know, if you're interested, mainly it's portraits of family members. But it's mainly, and some sculptures and some pottery.
Oh, wow.
So it's a very,
Nice.
there are lots of pieces in this exhibit.
Okay.
The Redhomes is open, I think, from 10 to 5. I don't know if it's open Mondays now or not, but 10 to 2 on Saturday.
Okay.
So it's a good exhibit.
We're also seeking another artist to post up on the walls for a while. So if anyone has an artist they'd like to suggest, please let me know. It's time to rotate them through.
There's a senior health fair in the Methodist Church, First Methodist, on Tuesday. They have a little lunch at 12 and then 3 screenings, and then the yoga instructor is going to have all yoga of some sort about 1:30.
Okay.
And then the usual yoga classes too.
And that's at the First Methodist?
First Methodist.
Okay. Tuesday at?
Started when?
12 o'clock,
It was.
12 to 2 on Tuesday.
Okay. That would be a great idea. Our community. So we're going to, actually, we don't have prelude music scheduled this morning, so we're going to jump right to the cello solo.
Y'all will join me in saying, we light this candle for the light of truth and reason, for the warmth of love and friendship, for the flame of strength and action, and for the vision of tolerance and justice. Now is the time, if anyone has any joys or concerns that they would like to share, please come forward and light a candle. Please use the microphone and speak into it in order that we may all hear you.
Have a joy that I made it around the sun successfully another time. Had an 80th celebration yesterday that included many of my grandchildren and great-grandchildren in it. It was really a fun event, and I didn't fall asleep. They wouldn't let me. It was a good time, and if I never have another birthday, that was good enough.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
birthday. And many, many more. Well, this is a joy because we had some rain, and I got 3 4/10 worth inches of rain over about 3 days. So it is a joy. We need much more, but this is a start. And so
Those prayers asked me best to work.
our rain program.
Yes.
Mine also is a joy about the rain. We were quite thrilled to see that it will probably save a lot of our trees.
Yay. Yay.
So it's just like the program.
Just gotta.
Also a concern, my husband's been down with like a pinched nerve or something in his shoulder. And so he couldn't use his arm there for a day. And he seems to be on the mend now, so I'm joyful that it's coming along, and it's not a hospital trip or something more serious. That's why he's not with me this morning. Any other joys and concerns?
Odds at this point. We move things around in the house. I noticed this. We moved things around because we got rid of our old mattress. So now we're not going to be sleeping in church on Sunday because we can sleep at night. And this is something I wanted to bring today and share with y'all. I've been real concerned with the last week's destabilizations around the world. And there was a period about 20 years ago. No, it was about 50, no, 20 years. But anyway, the young man, he happens to be my son. He has an old soul in him, and I'm so grateful for him. Even when he was a little baby, the day he was born, the doctor told me he looked like he was working with circles. Anyway, math is not his favorite thing, but he does have a wise old soul in front of him. When he was little bitty, I loved to read Shel Silverstein to him. And I think a child has to have a little bit of something of an old soul in him to really get into Shel Silverstein, as long as young as he was, like where the sidewalk ends. When he was a young man in high school, he did this drawing, and then this was with chalk, and it was his prayer for peace in the world. And so he has spirits of people up in space looking down on Earth, and they're trying to bless the Earth with peace and energy. And you can see this symbol here is the symbol that's holding the bell right there. a Muslim symbol, I guess. And then also the symbol for energy. And that's what that was his prayer for peace. And I'm thinking very much about peace in the world, and hopefully we can move past these disturbances. So I wanted to share that with you.
Is that the moon up in that corner?
Yeah. And then the earth and the cities. He did a good job.
Chalk is hard for.
He's quite a young man. Thank you. Did you see it? I'll put it on the table over there so everybody can look at it. That's beautiful.
So I'd like one last candle for those joys and concerns unexpressed, or for those who are not.
You want me to make it? Yeah, I'd like, I'll make a color print and we can put it on the wall. Okay.
For all of life and gifts we hold sacred, we raise our voices. For all our relations we will meet with compassion and grace, we raise our voices. For justice and peace and the health of all the cycle of life, we raise our voices. For the celebration of all who themselves cannot or may not, we raise our voices. For the remembrance of those who have taught, led, or inspired us, we raise our voices. For this moment in time that we are granted to share the wealth of each other's presence, we raise our voices. For the power of our collective voice in concerted action with vision and love, we raise our voices. Jim Scott. Our opening hymn this morning is going to be Spirit of Life in the gray hymnal, number 123. Sorry about that. And now it's time for our offertory. We ask that you look into your hearts and see what is available there. How much love, how much generosity, how much faith and gratitude, how much hope, and let us take our offering from that accounting. Would you please be the investment? Now it's time for our meditation period for silent prayer. Look back in the past. Look back at the relatives and the friends who helped you along your way, who mentored you in your life. Look back and remember their influence. Look back at the lessons that you learned of life, that you carried forward into your own life. Number 661 in responsive readings, back in the hymnal. If you'll read the italicized. 661. Heart knoweth.
661 or 65?
661. Yes, sir. We have a great deal more kindness than is ever spoken.
Oh, human family, your faith and element of love like a fine engineer.
How many persons we meet in houses whom we scarcely speak to, whom we yet honor and who honor us.
How many we see in the street or sit in the church, whom silently warmly rejoice to be with.
Read the language of these wandering eyebeams.
The heart
Knoweth. By Ralph Waldo Emerson. Yes, these are quite interesting in the back. If you ever have an opportunity, take the time and just randomly read through some of these. There are some really wonderful snippets of wisdom throughout here. And I will let Reverend Lauren Mart, introduce herself. She is quite the interesting person, and I've known her for about 12 years now. Enjoys her.
So Glenn did ask me to introduce myself. My name is Reverend Lauren Mart. I have been a member of a tradition of American religious liturgy called Our Direct Faith since about 2011, and I was ordained in 2018 through a clergy training program. I led the group that Gwen was affiliated with in Houston, which was a small C church that had anywhere from 5 to 40 members, given what time it was at what point in time, from 2012 until 2020 when I relocated up to North Texas. I was given pretty much free rein to talk to you this morning, and I thought about it, and I could talk to you about historical druids. But you're all smart people and the library exists. And I could talk to you about various strains of modern druidry, because there's a bunch of them. But you're still smart and the library still exists. And trying to explain which one would appeal to any one of you, we would literally be here all day. They do range from fraternal orders to polytheist religions to environmental activists to people who got bored with church in the 70s and decided to be druids instead. And the Venn diagram overlaps between all of them, and it is a wonderful, encouraging subject, but not one that really makes you think. So I thought instead that I would talk about what it means to druid the thing for me. And perhaps start with some questions. You don't have to answer them. I'm going to give you like a little second to just sort of consider these questions as a whole. They're all getting somewhere. I promise I'm going somewhere with all of this. Think about for a minute, if I asked you where you're from, where would you say? Would you say you're from Europe? I'm Italian. I'm Irish. Did you live there? And where were you born? And is where you were born the same place as where you're from? Are you maybe from here? Where's here? How big is here? Are you from the United States? Are you from Texas? Are you from Huntsville? Are you from 1402 Aztec Trail in in Crum, Texas? And how long have you been here? And who was here before you got here? And are they also from here? We are, most of us, immigrants to this country. And when you think about it, in the history of mythology, which we Druids tend to like, the people who were here before the people who wrote the mythology tend to end up with a bad rap. So if you think about the Olympians, the Greek gods, there are the Titans. Who were the Greek gods before the Olympians got there and threw them out? And when you think about the Norse gods, you think about the Aesir are the gods who threw the Vanir out, and they were the gods who threw the Jotun out. So now we have two traditions of people throwing people out. When you think about the Tuatha De Danann, the Irish gods, they're the people who got there and threw the Firbolg out. And if you read the lore about the Titans and the Jotun and the Firbolg, none of those people are portrayed particularly nicely in the lore. We don't give them a lot of credit. But they are from those places. Do we, as modern Americans, have outdwellers? And perhaps, how are we, as immigrants to this country, in relationship with the people who were here before we got here? Because we know our ancestors did not do a particularly good job of that. That doesn't mean we can't. So, what does it mean to be from here? And where do you belong? With whom? Doing what? How big is where? Is it a community, a geography, a religion? All of the above? Do you belong? What does your identity say? My heart belongs to this. And if that's a community, how do you support that community and how does it support you? Are you in service to that community and does it in return give you something? And can you choose to belong where you are? I mean, we're all here. We belong here for the next half an hour, approximately. Can we choose to belong here in this moment as the assorted 15 or so of us and be here, wherever here is, as a practice? Is there a practice of being here and belonging where you are? Maybe we talk about what do the seasons look like here as people who live in a particular geography. Maybe we talk about what grows here, or who else lives here, or where the water comes from, or where the trash goes. But maybe place is bigger than all those things. And maybe place-based belonging can be something that we do and something that we embody. Can we live that? What does it mean to live belonging somewhere? What does it mean to live belonging with where? What does a druid do? There are three things that a druid embodies, because druid likes things in threes. It's a thing, like all of our things are in threes, right? Like there's three things on my stole, right? Like it's a thing. So I'm going to pitch to you, without putting religion on it at all, I'm going to pitch to you three things that I think we can all embody as part of belonging to wherever we are. The first one is hospitality. We live hospitably with each other. Are you a guest? What does it mean to be a guest? Are you a host? What does it mean to be a host? Fun word. And I say that word ghost because my head is ahead of where I'm talking in the script, because there is a word, if you go back a really, really, really long way, the word guest and the word host come from the same word. That word stem in Proto-Indo-European is gosti, G-H-O-S-T-I. And our word for guest and our word for host come from the same place because they are about the same relationship. The relationship there is what's important. And if you grew up in Texas, you're probably familiar with that, right? Like when you go to somebody's house for dinner, you bring something. And when you go to somebody's house for dinner, they probably consider what it is that you like to eat. And you know that you don't throw things out the window when you're a guest at somebody's house. And you kind of like generally understand how you behave when you are new somewhere, when someone has welcomed you. If you know anything about the tenets of Judaism, you know the welcoming of the stranger. If you know anything about Norse mythology, you know the welcoming of the stranger. That the guest-host relationship is sacred to a whole lot of humans. This is kind of a thing that you see kind of everywhere. And it's different. It has different flavors in different places, but we understand what it means to be welcomed somewhere. And we understand what it means to be a stranger somewhere. What if hospitality is part of belonging where you are? Hospitality has like a cousin, and that cousin is reciprocity. So hospitality is that we are guests or we are hosts, so we understand that relationship. Reciprocity means learning what's needed in any situation and understanding how to both give and receive in that situation. It's knowing that with your friends, when you go out for dinner, you might pick up the tab this week, and they'll pick up the tab next week, and it all comes out in the wash. We're not measuring, it's not tit for tat, we're not keeping balance sheets, but we are in reciprocal relationship with each other. We know what it means to balance a relationship. And I would make an argument, and I've made this argument before, lots of people like to argue with me about it, so feel free to argue with me about it later, that we're not talking about the golden rule. I'm not talking about do unto others as you would have done unto you. I'm talking about give unto others what it is that they most need and what it is that they ask for. The consideration is not how do I want to be treated. The consideration is how you want to be treated. How do you ask me to treat you? Because that's part of that relationship. It is not an I-focused relationship, or even a you-focused relationship. It's an us-focused relationship, and how the balance is between us. The Romans had a saying, no des, which means, I give, so you may give, so I may give again. It's not keeping score. It's not tallying up the restaurant bill. It's knowing that when we are in relationship with each other, it all kind of balances out. And I imagine you can all think of somebody who doesn't do that well, right? There are definitely people who don't do the whole give and take thing. The I give, so you may give, so I may give again. There are people who don't do that, and we feel it. It is innate to us that that relationship is us focused. It's not about either one of us alone. It's about both of us together. What does it look like to think about where you belong as someplace that you are in reciprocal relationship? Does the place where you live give to you, and do you give back to it? And the last piece of this, so we have hospitality and we have reciprocity. And the last piece for this is perhaps a different kind of noun, and that is hearth fire. Ancient peoples used fire for a lot of things. They used fire as a method of establishing belonging. I live here now. I have lit a fire in the hearth. Someone lives here. It is a sign of life. It's a method of hallowing. The Anglo-Saxons used to carry fire around sacred places as a way to say, this place is sacred. There's actually an extant hymn about it. It's really cool. And so use fire to say, I live in this place. I belong to this place. We use fire to say, this place is sacred to us. We use fire as a method of offering, and a method of sacrifice. In my tradition, many offerings go to the fire. And in many ancient traditions, the fire is a thing all of its own. It is a thing with life. It breathes. It needs air like we do. And the fire transforms sacrifices into the method by which somebody else, the gods, the ancestors, the spirits, can consume that. It is a force of transformation by which ancient peoples were in relationship to everything. And fire was the center of community. You know the sacrifices in the Greek tradition where they slaughtered 100 bulls? That's also the community barbecue, by the way. Those bulls were not just left to rot. Part of those bulls were offered in burnt sacrifice to the gods, and the rest were eaten by humans. It was an element of community. The fire transforms the sacrifice, but it also cooks our food. It brings us together. We talked in hospitality about going to someone's house, sharing a meal. Our fires come out of a stove. Your stove might be electric. At some point in time, there were some electrons that got annoyed enough to make your food. So fire is part of hospitality as humans. Food is part of hospitality as humans. Come back. One of the things that we say in my tradition is a prayer about centering ourselves as part of the cosmos. And the line that most of us You know how when you're saying something and all the hairs stand up on the back of your neck? The line that makes us all go, at our center burns a living flame. We will also say, let us pray with a good fire. That's like 3,000 years old that humans have been saying that. Given all of this, given hospitality, given reciprocity, given a hearth fire, these three things that like most people understand on some level, no matter what religion they are. You don't have to believe anything to know anything about this. Can we be druids? If these are druid things, can we druid where we are? Can we be druids with the clerk at the grocery store? Can we be druids with the teller at the bank? No. Please don't light a fire at the grocery store or the bank. But what does that mean about how we approach relationships? We talked about the we, the us. It means approaching everything that we do with another, whether that another is a human, or that another is your tomato plants, or that another is whatever beings and spirits you believe in. Can we go to that with what the Buddhists will call beginner's mind? Shinra Suzuki Roshi has a little book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And in it he says, in the mind of the beginner, there are infinite possibilities. But in the mind of the expert, there are few. When you start something new, you don't really know what your limits are. You haven't learned what your limits are yet. That's beginner's mind. When I meet somebody new, I don't know what they're like. I don't know who they are. I get to learn that. But if I keep beginner's mind, I never expect anything of who they are. They get to be whoever they are, wherever I meet them. They might be sad, they might be depressed, they might be angry, they might be joyful. Can I approach the grocery store with beginner's mind? This is a person I don't know. Where are they right now? And so, if beginner's mind, if fire and hospitality and reciprocity are ways of druiding the thing, they're ways of approaching the world that focus relationship in whatever kind of relationship you're talking about. I mean, maybe are you doing some of that? I mean, you probably are. Certainly with your family, those are values that we try and culture in our kids, culture in our families. Are you druid adjacent already? And isn't all that stuff kind of hard? Right? Like, none of that's easy. Some of it feels innate, but none of that's easy. It's not easy to go about your day thinking about every conversation as a moment to druid. It's not, right? Like, that's huge. Am I thinking about that all day? I want to be. But hard things are worth doing. And by centering your relationship, and centering the give and take, and centering the us of whatever it is that you're doing, you can embody being the druid of the place where you belong, of being the druid of this place, wherever this place is. My dear friend and mentor, Reverend William Ashton, will say, druids are humans in service to communities that are tied to the land. And all that is being the druid of this place. Do we have time?
Yes.
If we have about 15 minutes, I'm very happy to take questions. If there are any, feel free to go ahead.
Fire,
Yes.
there are goose growth.
Yes.
Is there a understanding of Zarathustra and the ancient traditions of the Middle East?
Yes,
Into your.
a little bit. So my main studies have been in the Indo-European language group, which is peripheral to the Zoroastrians and to the descendant Middle Eastern cultures. I would be the first to admit that I am not an expert on that, but it is related in some way to that. If you want, I will take that question to somebody that I would very much trust to have a much more educated answer.
I would like to hear that.
Yes, 100%. Remind me and I'll write it down when I get back to you. Go ahead.
Well, two comments. One is when you were talking about being present, wherever you are. I'm worried about people that are never present because they're working on their cell phones. I mean, their cell phone is the main thing. And you go down the street and you don't look where you are. I mean, and I worry about people that grow up with it appears to me they've never been present in where they are. So I wonder what the consequences of that is. And then the fire situation, thought about it because we build houses now with a whole fireplace because we want a fireplace. It may not be functional, but we want a house that has
A fireplace,
a fireplace.
because that means
Because it's
something.
hard to go on that fire. And I thought that's
It's a thing we still do.
we still do, although in many cases it's no longer usable, but it is something that for some reason.
It's a symbol of being home, of belonging somewhere, of that being a place where humans live. I will speak to the cell phone thing a little bit, and I speak this as a stepmother to autistic children. There is such a thing as being where you are, being more than your brain can handle.
Yes, yes.
And I very much am okay with my kids saying, I need a phone break. I need to go, my brain needs to quiet down. This is a lot right now. Having the mindfulness to know that that's what you need and not to simply succumb to the dopamine hit that is the constant scroll is a process. That is a learned skill. And it heartens me that more and more people and more young people that I meet are aware of that. You'll see, I'm part of several intergenerational communities, and I start to see people who are 18, 19, 20 years old, when they're having a conversation, they turn their phones over. Because I don't want to see whatever is coming up here. I'm here with you. The us is what's important. And I've started to see that more and more because people are becoming aware that it's very easy to just not be here. And so the phone thing is new, right? They're new since I was a kid, right? That's a skill set. And I think it's a skill set that we can teach as we learn to do that ourselves and that we can model with our kids and with grandkids and with people in our lives as a druid adjacent practice, right? This is understanding what I need, but also understanding the us and knowing the balance and knowing the give and take of that situation.
I have another question. Are you trained in linguistics because you made reference to the Indo-European languages?
I have just enough linguistic training to be dangerous, which is to say that I don't have a ton of it, but I can definitely make an idiot of myself given the chance.
I do that on a lot of skills.
Because my tradition of Druidry, it's one of those words like Druidry, people think Irish, right? Druids were the priestly class of their society. And most Indo-European societies had a equivalent priestly class. And the person who founded my tradition was really into the Irish ones, but he eventually opened it up to include all of those priestly classes that were descendants of the Indo-European language group. So I have like a little bit of knowledge about how those words all sort of trace back to each other.
So many people move and begin these things. It is extremely difficult to be attached to a place any longer, particularly if you live in, say, an apartment complex, where you have so many people supposedly in community and yet totally disconnected from each other. So how does that work with security?
So y'all will invite me back. That's another sermon. And it's not just another sermon, it's a whole series of presentations that I and one of my co-religionists, Jane, who moved to Guam and had to learn how to druid in Guam after having lived in Colorado her whole life. And so I have some resources on that. If you guys want me to come back sometime, I would love to come back and talk about how do you figure out where you belong and like what does it mean to discover that and plug into that.
You know, I don't want to talk too much, but one of the existential issues of our time is our place in the universe. Because within our lifetimes, it has gone from essentially Newtonian mechanics, relativity, it's gone to a universe that can be measured at 13.8 billion years of age. So our place in the universe has changed dramatically over the last 100 years. And I think to some extent, it challenges our philosophical systems.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to speak to that, around the time that it's like 2900 to like 800 BCE, there was something called the Axial Age. And what happened was we went from a universe where gods were individuals and humans were on the bottom and they were singular. And we flipped it, right? And that was where we start to see monotheism. You start to see traditions where individual practices start to become important, as opposed to humans are a thing together and we religion together and it makes the world go round, to humans religion because it makes us good people, and whatever is up there is sort of this kind of unified concept. So we have this big shift in the Axial Age. A bunch of Indo-European religions went through. We are in a new Axial Age today, according to scholars of that type. Because what we are going through is a new philosophical understanding of how humanity, how people, religion. How does religion? What is it? Does it matter? Do we do it for a reason? And we're kind of like in the middle of that, so I don't think I have a good answer for you, but I will say that scholars of the Axial Age will talk about what we are going through right now as a sort of daughter experience. We don't know if we're going to completely turn all of it upside down yet, because we've not finished it. Probably won't know that for 1,000 years after we're done with it, because that's how that works. But we are absolutely going through a similarly radical shift in how humans understand their place in the universe. And I will absolutely cough up on the vulnerability side here that part of my not really grokking, to use a word from, oh gosh, who is that? It's not Rick Bradbury. Heinlein. To use a word from Heinlein, grok is something that you innately understand on the level of your soul. It's not something you know with your head, it's something you feel. Mine not really grokking those big relationships, right? Can I understand my relationship with the universe? No, probably not. That's kind of a big question. I probably need to have a beer and be sitting with my friends around a fire and we can all talk about it for hours and whether or not it matters or not. But I can understand my relationship with my grandfather who passed on. I can understand my relationship with the piece of land that I live on and the tree in my front yard. Like, these are relationships that are small enough that they make sense to my little human brain. And coming to a more place-based understanding of, I guess this is spiritual in a way, helps me stay grounded while I try and sort out all of the big, giant questions of my purpose in the universe.
Which is meaning.
Right, but I can find meaning in my conversations. I can find meaning in getting my hands into the soil and planting. I can find meaning in having one of those days at work and just going outside and sitting with my back against the oak tree in my front yard and experiencing the world from the position of that oak tree that has never dealt with a marketing operations system in its life, right? And frankly does not care. And so there can be meaning on a small scale, and for me, meaning on the small scale leads to meaning on the big scale. Is that a question?
In Druid culture, does fire have the same place as water, earth, and air, and wind?
So okay, that's a very complicated question.
I mean, is it part of the
Yes,
part of that cycling?
yes. We center fire, and if I were to run a ritual in my tradition, there must be fire, because that was critical to the ancient language, religious stuff that we talk about. But there are other traditions of Druidry that speak much more about the balance of the elements. And as my tradition goes on, we see more and more of that incorporated in, if that makes sense.
I don't know much about the Druid culture. I think the only time things ever mentioned it to me was in the diacon class about 20 years ago. And a professor had a little too much libation, and we were canoeing around the lake, and he was singing these lyrics that went to the tune of old time religion and something about druids running naked through the woods. And that was
So like I said, you have everything from my tradition, which runs towards being very orthopraxic, which is to say what matters much more is what you do than what you believe. As long as we are doing the right thing, we get conversations about belief, but they matter a lot less. Traditions like Oba, who regards Ovids and Druids, which is based out of Great Britain, which doesn't carry this, but is very spiritual and very much attached to the Western mystery tradition, so they cast circles and they call quarters, to AODA, the Association of Druids in America, which is a fraternal order, not unlike the Masons, but they take a lot of their beliefs out of the ancient Welsh Druid traditions, to the Reformed Druids of North America, which are, I am not kidding, a group of college students who wanted out of their chapel requirement. And so they started a religion, called it Druidry, and it worked, and 50, 60 years later, they're still doing it. So when I say Druids, like, that's a complicated thing to define. So you can really get, like, Druids running naked through the woods next to a fraternal order, and they can both be right.
Well, he said that right on the beach with the Presbyterian youth chant. He was kicked out of Iowa Lakeside Lab.
Yes.
After that.
How did you get ordained?
How did I get ordained? Is that a question of the type of school that I went to, or is it a question of the process?
I guess both, really.
Okay, so my tradition of starting out faith has a whole bunch of study programs and schooling that you do. I did the first one in 2011, I did the second one in 2016, and then the third one, which it was a pretty academic, like very focused on Indo-European religion and leading ritual and in all of the, divination and all of that stuff. Completed that coursework and then was approved for ordination after creating an ordination profile. Ordination itself is done in a ritual by another priest. My dear friend Jan Bende, who is a second civil priest, came to Texas so that I could swear my oath of priesthood, which is, now I'm going to totally blank on it. I swear to honor the gods, serve the folk, and love the land. To this do I dedicate my hands, my heart, and my head. And I made that oath knowing that I would keep that oath no matter where I was in 40 years. I can honor the gods, love the land, and serve the folk, no matter what is going on. And then they take this, which is my soul, and they carry it around to all of the people who are there, who bless it. And one of the folk, like a normal lay person, puts the stole on you. This is the stole of the folk of ADF. It is the people who make you a priest, not the other priests. Gwen was there. It was quite cool.
So those courses were like correspondence, or you went to?
It was distance learning, but you do it with a whole group of mentors. So it's kind of a course in that it's done remotely, but it's very much like there's like pretty strict rubrics and people are experts in their field who are grading them. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, what are the common threads and connections? Are there parts of the Druid culture that influence other cultures, like our culture and our Christianity? Is there parts of Druid culture that are still in these?
To make sure I'm kind of understanding the question, are there elements of what the various Druid groups do that you see impacting like other religions today? Generally not, because there's not a lot of us. We're so much of a minority religion that they don't even measure us. Arneric Fame, the Druid tradition that I'm part of, is the largest in the United States and has about 2,000 members. I'm one of 32 priests who have through the clergy training program. OBOD, the group that's run out of Great Britain, is the largest in the world and has about 5,000 members. So you don't see a lot of impact on the big mainstream religions, mostly because they don't even know we exist. But at least in ADF, the rituals that I run on the cycle of the year are open, and they're open to anybody. You don't have to profess any belief or any belief at all, right? Like doesn't matter to me what you believe. If you want to come to the fire that we are creating and be in community with us, and you can honor the earth with us, and you can remember your ancestors with us, doesn't matter what you believe. And so you see people we often see UU churches affiliated with Druid groves. Mostly because most of us don't have the ability to have buildings. And so we make friends with UU churches who will let us use the building in exchange for us offering community service like that. So it's not at all uncommon for there to be some crossover between my church and the Druid and the UU church.
Maybe there's a further historical connection further back that connects us all, because honoring ancestors and the elements is part of most all those religions I've been hearing about.
Mm-hmm. And that is where you get kind of to where I was going today, which is that you don't really have to believe anything to understand what it means to be in relationship, right? For there to be give and take, for us to approach things as us, for us to approach things as a community. And those things, I mean, I don't like the word sacred often, but those things are sacred to a lot of humans in a lot of different cultures. Yes. Fire and hospitality and reciprocity. All right. I think we're definitely done at this point. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Shall we just skip to our final hymn? Extinguish the chalice. So number 4, Shalom Hungry.
All right, everyone. Shalom, Hungry, Shalom, Hungry, Shalom, 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 Havarim, Shalom, Havarim, Shalom, Shalom, Havarim, Shalom, Shalom. Thank you, everyone.
Before.